When I was a boy, growing up in Ireland, every weekend my father would take us to see the latest interesting thing that had arrived. Perhaps it was an exhibition in a museum. Perhaps there was a new circus in town. But one weekend really stands out. The weekend that we went to see virtual reality. This was way back at the start of VR, one of the first versions. And we all piled into the car and drove to a distant shopping center and paid an exorbitant amount of money to experience this early version of VR for a scant few minutes. It was crude and it was heavy. You wore this gigantic helmet across your head. And yet I was utterly captivated by it. The ability to step outside of this world and into another intoxicated my young mind. And I was sure, beyond sure, that this was the type of thing that we would be enjoying for years to come. And I waited. I waited for the next time I could try virtual reality. And the 90s rolled by and VR never really arrived. And 2000 came by and yet no more chances to try. And virtual reality had become a little bit of a joke. And that made me sad, and I kind of accepted it. And then this gentleman came along. 3 years ago, Palmer Luckey arrived to a video game conference with a mobile phone screen duct taped to some ski goggles and set the world ablaze once more with excitement for virtual reality. I couldn't have been happier. At last, everybody else felt the same way I did. And to make matters even worse, even better, my friend Paul bought for me for my wedding version 1 of Palmer's Oculus Rift. Even before it arrived, I knew exactly what I would be making. You see, for my whole life, I've suffered from problems with anxiety and depression, as I'm sure many of us here today have as well. Those of you who have will understand how dominating a force it can be in one's life, how overwhelming things can see at times. And that year when virtual reality was finally arriving, was a particularly difficult year for me. My father had grown sick. I was teaching my first semester in university. And the video game studio I'd helped found, bitSmith Games, we were launching our first game. I was drowning in a sea of busyness. Every morning I felt I was sucked into the day and spat out the other end, having experienced nothing, an empty husk. I wanted to create space. I wanted to create a moment where things stopped. In 1954, John Lilly created the isolation tank. This is a chamber filled with very salty water in which the user floats. Perhaps some of you have tried it. You are isolated from all sounds and sights. And because the temperature of the water and the air on your body are exactly the same, eventually you also lose the sense of touch. Strange things begin to happen within your mind. And it gives you a glimpse of states of consciousness previously only accessible to people with years of meditation experience. The question that I would like to try to answer, the question that I am trying to answer, is can we use virtual reality in the same way? When my Oculus arrived, the first things I began to build were simply star fields that I could sit in and meditate. But I wanted more. And I began to build Deep. Deep is a virtual reality game that you explore a colorful underwater world. You get to look at the interesting plants and meet fish and giant creatures and explore its various nooks and crannies. But what makes Deep truly interesting is the way in which you control it. The game is controlled by deep, diaphragmatic yoga breathing. Perhaps if you've been to a meditation class or a yoga class, you've done it before. This is the type of breathing that instead of breathing shallowly into the chest, you breathe slowly and deeply into your belly. As you breathe in, you move up in the game. And as you breathe out, you move forward. It brings the player's attention constantly back to their breath. And you breathe slowly and deeply. And eventually, hopefully, you begin to sink into deeper and deeper states of relaxation. This form of breathing has been shown to help with anxiety and depression. Indeed, it's the technique I've used myself for years and years to help manage this condition. Let's try it for a moment together. Synchronize your breathing with the shape on the screen. If you want to, place your hand upon your belly. As you breathe in, push your hand away. And as you breathe out, allow your belly to draw your hand back in. If you're ever having trouble sleeping, this is a fantastic technique. If you're ever feeling nervous about a talk, like I was a moment ago, you can use this to help. This is an amazing technology and technique that exists within all of us, and it's accessible at no cost. One of the things I hope to do with this project is train people on how to use it, as well as open up a discussion about anxiety, depression, and mental health. I could do this all day, but we got to move on. I worked on this project alone for almost a year and a half, initially with no budget. The controller, the way it senses the breathing, is a belt that goes around your belly. And this is me constructing one of the early versions. It was made out of things that were basically lying around. And there was a lot of really terrible prototypes at first. But thankfully, I was eventually connected with the wonderful Dutch artist, bitSmith, who's created the beautiful world that you can explore. And as well, Dr. Brian Duggan, playing the flute there. The man who taught me how to program has created all of the artificial intelligence for the fish and the whale and the various things you meet within the world. As I said, I worked on the game for quite a while, but this was the moment when I knew we were onto something. Christos Reed is a game developer from the UK, and he suffers from anxiety, depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. And he tried Deep at a moment when he was on the brink of a full-blown panic attack. He said later that Deep had helped him in a way no other thing had. And it was an incredibly moving moment for me. When I started making video games, I never expected to connect with people on this level. If I do nothing more, I will be so proud still of this moment and having made this one connection. I'm excited for the future of this project. Though I don't really know what it holds, I can tell you that in October, in the Netherlands, we'll be showing a multiplayer version of the game. In that, you'll be able to explore the world and breathe together. That'll be at the CineKid Festival. And since showing the game, I've gotten a lot of emails. People sharing intimate stories of their own struggles with anxiety and depression, and request upon request for a home version. I don't even know exactly how that would work, but it's something that I would love to see happen. I'm excited for the future of this project. But I'm even more excited about the future of virtual reality. With the advent of the internet, if I wish to learn how to program a computer, or how to write poetry, or advanced mathematics, or anything at all, I can do it for free. Anybody with access to a computer or a smartphone can learn almost anything at no cost. Just a few decades ago, to learn these skills, you would have had to have been extremely privileged. This is my favorite thing about the internet. I believe, I hope, that virtual reality can do the same thing for experiences. To visit Machu Picchu, to kayak the fjords of Norway, to go to space, to go to Mars, to go to places we've never even thought of before. Right now, these are only accessible to the extremely privileged on this planet. But soon, with VR, hopefully, it will be accessible to everybody with a smartphone. I'm not excited about the polygons or shooting aliens in the face. I'm excited about the new experiences we're going to make together, for each other, and with each other, and the new ways we are going to connect through virtual reality. If you want to, you can experience Deep upstairs at the break. Thank you very much.